Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Lending Bros. Actually, this is the first episode.
This is the first episode right here.
Official episode, kicking it off. I'm Shane Sharp with Sharp Advisors, a branch manager here at Benchmark Mortgage.
I am CJ Moss with the Moss Group, also a branch manager with Benchmark Mortgage.
Boom. So we're going to talk about branch names because we actually don't have a branch name.
We do not. We are branch 1974 currently,
Nameless.
which is very lame.
So our amazing marketing guru came up with some names, most likely through ChatGPT.
There's no doubt.
So these made the ChatGPT cut. There's Next Gen Mortgage Advisors. We got Apex Mortgage Team. There's Benchmark Elite Lending because the other Benchmark is not elite.
Not elite. This is the elite version of Benchmark.
Sure, that'll go over really well.
It's like the Navy SEALs, but mortgage.
Of Benchmark.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll love that. Or Synergy Financial Group.
I'm going to be honest, I hate them all.
Yeah, we should fire Jay. It's Jay's fault. So, still looking. If
Still
you're
looking
watching
for
this,
a branch name.
if you can also use ChatGPT, you can get us some other names, and maybe we're hiring for a marketing role. We'll see too. So, so the first thing to really kind of go through today is I figured we could start about kind of origin stories in mortgage.
For sure.
And so, where did you start in mortgage? Let's start with that.
Man, I was actually headed to law school, so I went to college at the University of Oklahoma and graduated there, was headed to law school with one of my good buddies. And a couple weeks before that, I took an interview with the team you were working for at the time and decided that I didn't want to go to law school, didn't want to go into a bunch of debt for no real reason. And here we are 8 years later, not in law school. Not a lawyer, thank God, and in mortgage. So,
Yeah, another industry that ChatGPT is gonna AI is gonna take over.
Yeah, I can't even switch to
Dodge the
my backup
bullet
plan.
there. Yeah,
Yeah, I need plan C
about a
now.
third. Yeah, probably like farming or something.
Yeah, because that's going great.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I had to look this up. I looked on Facebook because I guess I'm old and that's
I
what
love that.
old people do is they look at Facebook dates and stuff. So August of 2013 is when I got into mortgage. That's
Okay.
where I started.
Yeah.
So it's coming up on 11 years.
That's crazy.
It's always like one of those things. Like I tell people I'm 35 years old,
Yeah.
but I don't really remember if I'm 35 or 36.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I started. Actually, no, my start date. It was July 1st, 2016, I believe. No, 2015. So that would be what is this? Is fascinating content as we add years, but 8 or 9 years, something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
But like, so are you at an age yet where you forget how old you are, or is that?
Oh, all the time. Yeah. Someone asked me the other day how old I was. I said 30. Fun fact, I'm not 30.
But you were confident.
31. Yeah. Oh, I
they
didn't
didn't
realize till
question it.
after the conversation. They think I'm 30.
Yeah. And you're how old? 31?
31, I
Yeah,
think.
thought so.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. I'll ask my wife.
There's a website for that. So yeah, I got into mortgage. I was actually going to school for finance. I was going to do a victory lap. Found out my wife was pregnant. Realized I probably should get my
There
crap
goes
together.
the victory lap.
And then I started $10
Did you
an hour.
graduate?
I did. I'm kind of offended by that.
Well, you said you're doing a victory lap, and so I didn't know if you graduated.
You don't think I'm smart enough? Like,
Depends on the day.
yeah, that's true. So I finished. So I did. I was gonna do what was it like 7 hours and 9 hours on a semester. So I just did 16 hours in one semester.
Oof.
Yes, I can do math. There was actually a lab in one of them, so bonus hour. So yeah, I just knocked it all out in one semester, and then
Nice. And here we are.
went back to DJing and waiting restaurants till I found mortgage.
Needle sharp.
That's right, dude. Okay, so let's talk about misconceptions in lending. What are some common like myths that you kind of run into as far as that clients have about loans?
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the most common ones that I run into, I'm sure you do too, is based around mortgage insurance. So I talk to, I can't tell you how many clients that expect mortgage insurance to be significantly more expensive than it is.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, if you have decent credit, even not even amazing credit, right? A lot of times the mortgage insurance is going to be less than $100 a month, right? And so I've got these clients that are thinking going into it, right, that they're going to put $40,000, $50,000 more than they do once they kind of see the numbers. So
Yeah.
I think that is something that probably needs to get out there more, right?
Yeah.
Is how a lot of times how little mortgage insurance costs
For sure.
for clients.
Yeah, and I saw two statistics the other day. One was that average first-time home buyer feels like 1 out of 9 people think they have to put 20% down
It's still insane to me that that's a thing.
today, like
Yeah.
where there's so much data that says otherwise, right? And then the other one is that the average first-time home buyer puts 6% down.
Yeah.
So wild.
Yeah, for sure. So that means what, 1 out of 9 people maybe aren't purchasing a house, right? Because they feel like they need more down payment when they don't.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think on my end, I typically see right now, specifically in this market, is that I see like one extreme to the other as far as closing costs.
Yep.
People think that the seller will pay for every single penny of closing costs, or they think that there's no shot of them paying for anything, which typically it's somewhere in between.
Yeah.
It's negotiable. They'll pay 5 or 7,000 or something like that.
Yep.
Not the full amount or not zero.
Yeah.
So that's probably the biggest thing.
So actually, I'm glad you brought that up. I pulled the data in May of our closed loans.
Love data.
And
Big data
11 of the 17 loans had seller concessions on them.
Really?
Yep. So, and people are always worried about values and things like that. We only had, of those 17, we had 1 short appraisal.
So 1 out of 17.
Yep.
It's like less than 5%.
You're the finance guy. I don't know. You tell me.
We'll say 5-ish%.
Cool.
We'll fix it in post. It's
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
You got us, Jay. That's incredible, man. So I feel like there's still a lot of, the perception is there's a lot of people that think that appraisals are going to be coming in short.
For sure.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Good for you. Look at you being prepared for this,
that.
man. What's a story, like just an outrageous like client experience, something that happened, maybe like a client misunderstood or just something kind of fun?
Man, I did have this, and if you're in lending long enough, you'll have one of these stories. I'm sure you had it too. I went to a closing last week where we had the dreaded client that read every word of every document.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So 2.5 hours where we sat, and I think I said probably 5 times, right? Hey guys,
You were at the closing?
Yeah. Well, I ended up leaving because it's like, all right, guys, done. But
That's right. You went to go get a picture.
yeah,
with them.
yeah. You try to do the whole like, hey guys, just feel free to read, but you can't change anything.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And they were just like, yeah. And then just
read.
Yeah.
Are they attorneys or?
No, they weren't.
Jeez.
Yeah. So
Just those people.
Yeah. You get that probably about once a year. Right.
Love
and normally we try to I don't know if you probably do the same. If I think it may be one of those clients, we send them all the docs, right? So they can review it at their own time.
Yep.
This one slipped right through the cracks.
Love that.
Yeah, it's great.
I don't know if it's funny, but we'll say it's outrageous. Had one, this happened pretty recently where, just like you, we send all of our buyers through underwriting up front.
Yep.
So we send everything through underwriting. We get all the documents. They qualify great. We got a game plan. They know their payments. Everything's awesome, right?
Yep.
They find a house, and something I always say is, hey, our approval never expires. You just make sure you keep your job. Don't finance a boat. It's like stupid joke, dad joke. Don't finance a boat, huh? And then make sure your cash to close is in a good place.
Yep.
And that's great. I've never had an issue with it. Well, this guy took the approval never expires really literally, and he decided to go from cutting his pay in half.
Oh, I love that for you.
A week before he got under contract. So fully approved, had all the documents, but of course lenders have to update paycheck
But Shane,
stubs.
the approval never expires.
It never expires. Yeah.
So you're going to change that wording.
Change the wording. You live, you learn. So we ended up making it work. They closed. They're super grateful, super sweet people. But it was an interesting conversation. So I called the realtor and I was like, hey, you know how I always say this with every buyer? They're like, yeah. They're like, well, they took it literally. So
Well, I know being in mortgage, I'm sure I feel like everywhere I go, I get asked this question about interest rates. So, hey Shane, what do you think interest rates are going to do here coming up?
Oh, that's a great question. I just had a conversation, that kind of a heated conversation with a realtor about this.
Yeah.
I think ultimately we don't really know what interest rates are going to do. A lot of the data that we have right now is supporting that interest rates are going to go down.
Yep.
What I'm seeing is the next 18 to 24 months is what the data supports. I'm super biased, just like you are too. So obviously we hope the interest rates go down next week or next month.
Yep.
They could. It's like that Office episode where the guy, he's like, when do you think that's going to happen? Could it be a month? He's like, yeah, it's very possible. Could it be 6 months? Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. So I don't think we really know exactly when,
Yeah.
but I'm baking 24 months is what I'm thinking.
I think a lot of people in our industry made a mistake, right? Because we've been talking for what's probably going on 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Where we thought rates were going to have dropped, right? And they've come down a bit, right? I think their top was October of 2023. They've come down almost a full percentage point since then. But as far as the market is concerned, isn't meaningful, right? But there were a lot of conversations I know that were had, and I was guilty of this too, right? Where probably overconfident in rates dropping within a timeline that didn't happen, right? And so I think it'll be interesting, right? Because again, it's kind of happening again, right? Where I hear a lot of LOs talking as if it's almost a guarantee, right, that rates are going to drop within the next year. And, they were saying the same thing last year, right? So I think it's, I've tried to be really careful when I talk to people, right, on, hey, we do think rates are going to drop, kind of to your point, right? We really have no idea, right? It's very dangerous to try to, predict the bottom, right? But I do think, and I know you agree too, I think if you're trying to purchase a home, it is a blessing that rates have not dropped.
100%.
With the lack of inventory that's out there, with the numbers that we have, I think I saw an NAR article, NAR, NAR. Realtors
are very adamant that you say NAR.
NAR. Okay. I didn't know that. All right.
Don't say it as NAR.
I saw an NAR article.
Great job.
That was predicting 6 to 7 million home buyers entering the market whenever rates hit 6%, which isn't that far, right? We're already in the upper sixes right now, right?
Yeah.
So really not a lot of movement before a ton of people flood into the market, and you're gonna be paying a lot more for a house. So
100%.
People think I'm crazy when I say it, but if you're trying to buy a house, you should be very grateful that rates are high.
Yeah, 100%. Speaking of data on how do you feel about like the BLS? That there's a group, Bureau Labor of Statistics, and they come out with a lot of the data.
Yeah.
As you very well know, we follow that a lot. Like, how do you feel about the manipulation? Oops, is that a trigger word? I don't know. Hot take. Like,
We're gonna get flagged.
The manipulation of that data. Like, have you been following that much?
Yeah, I have noticed that the unemployment statistics seem to only go up.
It's wild.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then going like they edit it afterwards.
And it always goes down.
No one cares about the edits.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just about the initial sticker shock, and the market reacts, and then they edit it, they correct it.
For sure. I think actually, I don't know if you saw this morning was the first time that I'd seen in a very long time where it actually went below expectations. There was only like 6,000 jobs below expectations, so they didn't get crazy. But and they also revised the last figure down like they do every month, right? So one time I would love for the revision to be up. I would love to see that. Hey guys, we were actually wrong. It was better than expected, but
probably not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
What are if there's any new loan officers entering the industry?
Yeah.
Other than telling them to run.
Don't.
What tips would you have for them as far as entering the industry today?
Man, I actually think it's not a terrible thing, right? Because we in our division we have a loan officer who's relatively new that's been killing it, right? Because it's kind of all right? Like if you can get business in this market, if you can, get realtors and get clients in this market, whenever rates turn, it's only going to go up, right?
Yeah.
So I actually don't think it's a terrible idea. I know it's hard, right? But like if you're coming in now, you're not going to know any different. I think, and I can speak for myself on this and other LLs I've talked to, I think, 2020 to 2022, it got a lot of loan officers lazy.
Yeah.
And they lost a lot of really good habits that they needed to keep.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember, when rates started to go down, it was kind of like in quicksand, right? It took a while for me to remember what it's like to prospect and not just have deals show up in my inbox or text me.
Yep.
So I think being able to avoid that actually is going to give you a little bit of a leg up on old guys like us who have been in the industry, right?
Sure.
Now I think that they're going to need to have a lot of, good habits, right? I think, speed to lead is always important. I think having a actual value add to realtors is important, and things like that. But not having the bad habits, I think, is actually going to be a leg up for young LOs.
Yeah, there's a gentleman in our branch. He's only been in the industry for a couple of years.
Yeah,
and I'm like envious of his ignorance because I'll tell him something that's like not like a theory coaching. It actually works and it's stuff that I should be doing. I'm not doing as much because I have bad habits.
Yeah,
and he just goes out and does it and comes back and reports. He's like a freaking soldier, man.
Yeah,
and he's killing it. He's getting some good traction. We actually you and I were on a call earlier today where there's a $1 billion producer.
Yeah, I think 1.8, something like that.
Yeah, and
with a B,
billion, and literally his value proposition was like, speed, follow through, follow up.
Yeah,
We're like, okay, like what's the real?
Yeah.
And he's like, follow through speed.
Yeah.
That's it.
No, I think everyone would be surprised in this industry. I know I have been consistently, right? Like there really isn't a secret sauce. Like you talk to these guys that do billions, right? And it's no different, right? There's only a few ways to skin a cat, right?
Yeah.
Sorry to PETA, but
Cat people.
yeah, or cat people. Yeah. There's just not, it's the same activities, right? It's just doing them over and over again at a high level and finding your niche, right? I think that the guy that we're talking about, right, kind of had his niche around corporations, right? And kind of, went that way. But it always surprised me, right? You expect to have these conversations, you're just like blown away with like, oh my God, I've never thought about that. This is going to revolutionize my business. He's doing the same things we're doing. He's just doing them at a higher level, right?
Are niches really a thing? I don't know, man. I have my limited beliefs
What's your limited belief on that? I'm curious.
that it's crap, that it's not real. I don't know. I think everyone speaks about how like niches build riches, and like every time I hear these people that are actually producing, they don't really have a niche. They just like I think you don't just totally have a wide net and a shotgun. But I don't know. I think I see a lot of people focusing on a specific laser area and getting obsessed with something and not really getting traction with that.
Well, yeah, I think I would just say I don't think if you're going to be successful, right, I don't think a niche is like this is my sole focus. But I do think that like you to go after something you're passionate about and, also, it's not like you're like saying like, oh no, first time home buyer, not my niche. Sorry, not gonna deal with you, right?
Yeah.
But like I do think there's value in a little bit of a laser approach. But no, yeah, I think anyone who's like only working with X client because I think you're losing a whole lot of business, and that's pretty stupid.
Maybe not a laser approach. Maybe like a focused flashlight, like a really bright flashlight. Like a narrow.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, less laser approach. This is something you and I have been working on as far as networking. So, what's the importance of networking and lending?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I've actually changed my opinion on this relatively recently.
Yeah.
I was of the opinion that networking was kind of just a not really a trigger word, right? But like something that people just said when they wanted to go have happy hours and get a drink.
Drink and play golf.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm networking, right?
Yeah.
But I do think there's real value in having referral partners that are in your industry, right? Even if it's a loan officer, right? Like someone that you're not going to recruit each other, but you're just going to bounce ideas off of, and even just sometimes complain, right? But then when it comes to like if you're in lending, right, like title or insurance or home warranty, whatever it is, right? I think building that in a network is really important.
Yeah.
But I do think you have to be a little careful because I do know some people, right, that are big networkers that like if you were to step back and look, hey, what are you actually getting from this? I don't think there's a whole lot, right? So I think it's a pretty razor's edge, at least in my opinion.
Yeah. It's the whole like give and take mentality. You have to
Yeah.
also like give and pour into people, but also remember like to take something, which is, I just had a conversation with a really close friend of mine, and he said like not every relationship you have to get something from it.
For sure.
You can also just serve people through that.
Well,
you know?
people feel that, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're going into a relationship or a meeting and you're expecting something, they're going to feel that and you're not going to get it, right?
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, I don't think, and that's why I think it's a little bit of razor's edge, right? I don't think you should enter a happy hour with like, okay, I'm going to get 3 deals from this. But like, I do think you probably need to take stock of your relationships once a quarter, right? And just see what you're actually getting from them.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. I think I'm going to do the 50 cups of coffee thing.
I haven't read that yet. It's in my inbox, but that seems like
cool.
a really cool idea.
Yeah. So
Tell me a little bit about it.
So basically, that it's a guy. I think it was in like New York or Chicago, and the guy went and had 50 cups of coffee with people. He was not prospecting. He was not selling. Literally just went just to gain perspective, and he would go and research like a person and go on LinkedIn and see like what they did well at, and just almost have like a friendly debate and like banter with them to gain knowledge and insight on that specific thing. But I think the key there is like a lot of times with networking, I mean, like you're not you're not doing it to get something, but also like the whole purpose of it is like, how can I help you? And then you expect them to ask, how can I help you back? Whereas this is literally just like 20 minutes, super hyper quick meeting with people, high net worth, high producers, high influence.
Yep.
And just not asking for anything, just learning, absorbing stuff from them.
Yeah.
Osmosis.
I love that, dude. I think the whole point of that, right, is to be genuine and to actually be interested in other people.
Yeah.
And people like people who are interested in, them and what they feel like. So I can see getting business from that even when you're not trying to, right?
Like, for sure. I really need to step up my shoe game when I do these with you because my shoes are whack.
Yeah. I'm intentionally sitting like this so people can see my shoes.
I'm gonna put my shoes down.
Yeah. That's probably best.
They won't see my shoes.
Yeah. Nobody likes that pay less bullshit.
Wow. These are Men's Warehouse.
Oh, wow. That's great.
I don't know the brand.
Yeah. It's probably best.
They were over $100 for these shoes.
I don't believe that. Go ahead.
It's really high quality because it wore off the name.
Yeah.
But I'm going to circle back. We're going to put the price in post.
Okay.
Jay's going to do it.
Yeah.
They're Gucci. Yeah, they're $3,000.
So what do you think? Obviously, this is kind of a hot button issue for people, and I think it goes hand in hand with rates, which we've already talked about. But what do you think is going to happen with home values?
I was talking about that earlier today. They have increased over the last 12 months.
Yep.
And the decrease that we had 24 months ago has already rebounded back. 18 months ago have already rebounded back. So based on what we're seeing, though, with the statistic you shared about seller concessions and everything on there, I really do see some softening and some settling in value. I think maybe the last 6 months of the year might be kind of flat as far as appreciation.
Yeah.
When we say softening and settling on there, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be, because there's appreciation where home values go up and there's depreciation where home values go down. I don't really see home prices going down this year.
I don't either.
I do think from what I'm seeing that they will be pretty flat.
Yeah.
And then long term though, projected appreciation for next year. So I was seeing on MBS Highway was still like 2.8% for 2025. That's what I'm seeing on my end. What are you seeing on yours?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of it's obviously going to be market dependent, right? Like on a macro level, like on a very wide scale level, I think homes are going to continue to appreciate, right? There are going to be some markets, most likely the markets that went crazy, right? Like I don't know if you've been paying attention to the Austin market, but it's softening quite a bit just because, I mean, there were homes that were appreciating 50% in a year, right? There was just like absurd down there.
Was it that high?
Dude, it was. I had a client purchased in the suburb of Austin that it was a new build that took a year and a half to build. It was a $300,000 house that he went under contract with.
300?
300. Very suburbs. It was far away from Austin, but it was a suburb. We got the appraisal back at $500,000. Oh. He gained $200,000 in equity for the year and a half that the home was being built. So like that's completely unsustainable.
No.
Like obviously you're going to soften a little bit, but like you can't really complain if, like, oh man, I depreciated 5% this year. Well, okay, what'd you do last year?
Yeah.
So I think if you're a buyer, right, and I don't necessarily think enough lenders have this conversation, but I think it's really important to figure out if you're a buyer how long you're going to be in the home.
Yeah.
Because if you come to me and you say, hey, CJ, I need a home for 6 to 8 months and I'm going to sell it, probably shouldn't buy, dude. Like, that's a bad idea. Because you're going to have to pay realtor fees. You're going to have to, if you're not going to improve the property, that's a great point. And you're just going to think it's going to, like, it's probably not going to be high enough for you to cover the cost of selling, right?
Yep.
But if you're going to rent it out or you're going to be in the home for more than, a lot of the break-even points I see, I'd be curious your thought on this, 2 to 3 years, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
As far as, for where you start to make money
Yep.
On the home. So you got to know, right, it's different than renting where it is going to be a little bit of a long-term investment.
Yeah.
But if you're in it for more than 2 years, it makes so much sense to do. But you got to know your timeline, or at least have a general idea.
Yeah. I've been using the MBS Highway rent versus buy analysis quite a bit. And it's a really, really easy conversation. I think a lot of my realtor partners previously, when they had partnered with lenders to do a rent versus buy analysis, it was through some other softwares that just only focused on the positives, which there's a lot of positives at buying.
Oh, for sure.
Like that's why we do what we do, right? Because we help people with their dreams. But there's also, if you're paying $1,200 a month for rent,
Yeah.
you are never going to buy a house in the DFW area that's going to make sense for 2 years to purchase.
No.
It just won't happen.
Yeah.
So the goal is to figure out, okay, financially, like when does it financially make sense as far as the break even point?
Yep.
And what I've found is a lot of times it depends on what the spread is from what they're currently paying to what they're needing, what their needs are on the purchase, right? If they're in a 1-bedroom apartment over in, Louisville, paying $1,500 a month, then they need to get a 3-bedroom house for their dog and for their roommate. Like they're going to pay a crap ton more.
For sure.
So they're going to have like a 5 or 6 year break even point.
Yeah.
So that's been a big thing that I've been kind of harping to my referral partners is like, I'm not just going to come in and sell. Cause I think like you said earlier, I think people just like networking, go to a networking meeting and like have your hand out wanting a deal. I feel like buyers are really smart now, which is good.
Yep.
And they can tell when you're being sold to and they're being talked into. The snake oil has been exposed, thank God. Sure. So I think it's really making an opportunity for honest advisors like you and me to stand out.
And I think it is fine, right? And if you have a realtor partner who doesn't feel this way, you should maybe look at your realtor partners, right? Like if you're showing them the information and it doesn't make sense for them to purchase and you're still trying to get them to purchase, that's on you, right? Like, but I talked to a client yesterday, actually, or 2 days ago. My days run together. Veteran client thinks he can rent for $2,500, wants to purchase a $400,000 house and wants his mortgage payment to be $2,500.
Yeah.
He's putting 0% down. It's just not going to happen.
No.
Right? But the conversation we had was, okay, is $500 a month more, right? We're going to structure it for a temporary buy down, get his rate in the 4s, right? It's going to be a good structure for him. He's going to have the seller pay for all his closing costs. So he's going to get into the home for $0.
It's awesome.
Is that worth $500 a month? Let's run the numbers. Let's do what you said, a rent versus own analysis. When does this make sense? And then you just kind of let them decide, right? But like, if I were to just go to him and be like, oh yeah, I mean, we'll get you $3,000 a month, but hey, you get to own a house, right? Like it's going to fall short.
You're not they're not going to buy the house anyways.
Yeah. And two, I'm going to feel like a piece of shit.
100%.
So
100%.
Yeah.
Got your first bleep on the podcast.
Yeah. No, I think I had one earlier about your shitty shoes.
Wow.
3. It's 3.
Well, bleep you. Go bleep yourself. I had a really cool story. I want to talk about like some cool, memorable client moments. So this was 2019.
Way back.
Way back. Yeah, but it was like this dude. So this guy actually used to be. He told me like he volunteered at his church, was involved. He worked, had like a super cool job. He literally like used to sell drugs in high school. So like he
how'd you source that income?
So it's tough. We had to wait 60 days.
Yeah.
But so like went to jail, like got caught in high school, into juvie and stuff, cleaned up his life. Came out and like got super involved in his church and volunteered and everything.
Nice.
First generation homeowner.
Cool.
No one in his family had ever owned a home. And we got him in a first time home buyer program, got his earnest money refunded back to him.
Nice.
So me and the realtor worked really closely, got all their closing costs paid for, down payment assistance. Got like $1,000 check back at closing. In hindsight, like I should have got one of those like cheesy giant checks.
Hey,
like,
we do need a giant check.
And $1,000.
We do need a giant check.
That doesn't happen often.
Who doesn't love a giant check?
We should get one just for fun. Yeah. Pay for like Chick-fil-A and stuff. The giant check. Just to be ridiculous.
Everyone gets their bonus that works for us in the form of a giant check.
Yeah, the bonus is going to be lower because those checks are expensive.
Yeah, obviously the cost of the check comes out of the bonus.
Obviously. But literally every year I do an annual review. And oftentimes I don't even get to call him. He calls me.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, what's up, bro? It's time for our annual review. Like,
that's awesome.
Don't need anything. Send someone else over to you. So like literally like loves the house, has a ton of equity.
Yeah.
I think last time we checked when we did our efficiency checkup, he had $200,000 of equity in the house.
That's amazing.
And when we started, he had like $10,000 in his name,
Yeah.
So super cool.
That is super cool.
What about you?
My favorite one recently, I had a kid. I say kid, makes me feel old. He graduated college. He had some buddies they were looking to rent, and realtor partner that I work with Sent him, said, hey, let's just look at purchasing, right? So we were able to get him in a multi-unit house. It was 4 units in Irving, I believe. And
He moved in one of the units.
he moved in one of the units. He put 5% down, or 3.5%. We did an FHA loan, 3.5%. His buddies, his 3 buddies, rented out the other units, and he is literally living mortgage free.
That's incredible.
While his buddies pay the mortgage,
Dude.
and he gets to just kind of, get the appreciation, get the pay down, and do that. It costs 3.5%, plus closing costs. And I do believe he actually got some seller credit. So that's really cool. And I know, you can now do that conventional. That came out recently, right? Multi-unit only put 5% down.
Yep.
So there's not a ton of those in the DFW area, but there are some.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a really big opportunity to build wealth on that, and get into the multi-unit space, and live in one and rent out the others for sure.
For sure. Awesome, man. Well, you and I recently, kind of off topic, but curious if there's anything you want to add in here.
Yeah.
Recently transitioned to a branch manager position.
Yep.
Both you and I together. People told us it couldn't be done, co-branch managing, but we're doing it, and we still like each other. That's great.
Most days, yeah.
Most of the time. What's been like some things that you've learned kind of transitioning in, like maybe expectations for what that looked like, and maybe reality? Like anything you want to share or anything on that?
Man, that's a great question. I underestimated how challenging it would be to produce and manage at the same time. Because obviously producing is where we make our money, right?
Yep.
But we obviously also need to manage and be sure everyone that is in our branch is in a good spot, right?
Yeah.
So that's taking some balance, and that's why I'm super grateful to have you.
For sure. Likewise.
Just because I can't imagine it all being on my shoulders. We hired an operations manager who's been incredible, and we've got really good employees, thankfully. But that I feel like that for me was probably the biggest adjustment. It's just the almost having to be selfish to a certain degree, right? And really focus on time blocking and really focus on, okay, I can get distracted with a whole bunch of other things that aren't going to bring the branch profit or me money.
Yeah.
Or I can focus on, what I do best, right? So that I feel like that took a while to kind of dial in. But
Yeah.
what do you think?
Sitting here thinking like, do I share this or not? But I will.
we can cut it if it's bad.
So the branch is in a really good place, and we're profitable every month, and everything's in good shape on there. So that's not what caused this issue. It's just balancing out on there. Remember one month where I was paying the bills, and apparently you can't do electricity on auto pay when it's a commercial building. So the lights went out. Had a realtor coming in in 30 minutes.
That.
We're like, oh man, the power's out. So we went next door. Their power's fine, and the other store, their power's fine. And he came in. He
That was
like,
like
oh, no.
month 2, wasn't it? Yeah, we were really building
Just
confidence.
happened.
Yeah.
Just happened. I was like, oh my God, what are we doing? But we got our ops manager to pay it now, so now that the lights stay on.
Yeah.
So that's good. No, I think balancing, Denise, who's in our division, she was talking about it on the call. I think it's really easy to kind of get sidetracked from the sales activities that we need to be doing that do generate revenue for our family.
Yep.
With things to optimize and tweak for the branch and to better the process. And it's kind of similar, if you are just a loan officer, it's kind of similar to that, but it's on steroids.
Yeah.
Like that's how I envision it. Like as a loan officer, I have to balance my systems and my process. And I'm a big systems guy. So I would just bang my head against the wall on system stuff and then forget like, oh crap, I do need to go get people, right?
Yeah.
Go lead generate. And I thought it was just going to be that for the branch manager, but there's so much more stuff to do.
For sure.
It's just an endless list,
Yeah.
So I think just stuff like that, just balancing and making sure, like you said, to just lead generate and prospect and do all those things to bring in sales.
Yeah. I think the other thing I found out, I think it's a learning lesson for even loan officers, right? I think people's first reaction is to reach out to management, whatever that is, right? Whether if you're a loan officer, whether that's your branch manager, if you're a processor, whether that's your operations manager. But I think not responding right away if it's not an emergency, I think I've learned that most people figure it out.
Yeah.
Right? And it's almost like a safety blanket that once that once they realize you're not getting instant response, they figure it out. Now that doesn't mean if something's on fire, right? Like just be like, oh, they'll figure it out.
Let it burn.
Yeah. But I do think a lot of questions that get asked don't necessarily need to be answered, and they can be figured out. So
Yeah.
that was a learning lesson as well.
For sure. Love it. What's your predictions on the future of lending?
That's a great question. I think that lenders who don't provide an exceptional amount of value are going to get taken over by technology and AI and whatever that is. But I do think I really do, and I firmly believe this, that there's always going to be a spot for people when they are making, for a lot of them, the largest purchase in their life, going into the most debt of their life, to talk to someone and to walk them through it and to, actually advise them on the best strategy. But if you're not currently doing that, I think you're going to lose to whatever it is, whether that's Amazon Mortgage or whether that's AI or whatever it is, right? Like and this is the same thing in real estate, right? Like if you're not providing an exceptional amount of value, you are going to lose market share, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I think from the aspect, there's a really, really, really large, both of us were on a text thread the other day on a thread, and they were talking about a really, really, really large mortgage lender in the United States that was relying too heavily on AI, and actually someone on our division actually stole a deal from them because they were freaked out by AI, right?
Yep.
So I think, we do have, I'm a huge fan. We have an AI-based home equity line of credit solution, which is typically like, you've done a HELOC before, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have too. Huge fan. It's a great product. But typically you do it through a bank and they're like dinosaurs. Like the opposite of technology. Like you have to fax your stuff in. Not really, but you might as well have. It's just so slow in the process. It's like 45, 60 days to close. Yeah. And when we're in an Amazon next day shipping world, we're like, I want to close in 14 days.
Yeah, like, what do you mean?
So we have a great, super grateful. I use a lot, a great AI-based HELOC solution, but no one knows that it's AI.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key. I'm leveraging it. Benchmark is allowing us to leverage the technology to provide a better experience to the customer, but it's human first.
Yep.
So I think that's where I see the future going. There's always going to be the people that want to use Amazon Mortgage. It may be terrible experience. It might not even be a better rate. It's just, it might even be the cheapest. It might just be cool.
Yep.
Click button, get mortgage, right? Sounds great in theory. There's always going to be those people that don't value the humanized experience. But I think that's where the future is going, is people are going to, ever since COVID, I think we saw this curve where everything was automated, everything was dehumanized. And now I think people more than ever really, truly appreciate human interaction.
Yeah. I think a lot of millennials feel that too.
For sure.
It's just the need and the want to actually talk to someone, right?
Yep.
So I think everything else in our lives, right, is so dehumanized, right, that I think big decisions like this, I think it's important, right? But again, like I said, if you're not advising, if you're just, here's your pre-approval, here's a 20% down option for you, right? Like that's very easy to reduplicate, but with a robot, right?
Yep.
So
that's a wrap on our first Lending Bros.
Shane will be back next time with cooler shoes.
Or more Payless shoes. We'll see.
Thanks so much for watching. If you want to learn more, feel free to follow both of our socials, and we'll link them below.